Hey, this is Lance from 20-Sided Night, and today we're going over Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Hey guys, today we're talking about Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It's another supplement, much in the way of Volo's Guide to Monsters. It doesn't have as many different, monster classes as Volo does, but it does have a lot of cool stuff in there. Talks a lot about player classes.
Yeah.
Talks a little bit about extra DM stuff, which is great for me and a few other DMs out there. Tell me a little bit about the classes.
So there's no new classes, as in there's a new, kind of fight or whatever, but there are different, aspects that you can go into. Like traditionally when you hit second or third level for most classes, you can sort of choose your aspect or sort of what path you want to go down. They sort of more expand on that. For example, the Barbarian, you have the Astral Guardian.
Let me see that.
Who, what they do is basically whenever they rage, they get cool ghosts of their ancestors to come protect them and help deal damage. Then after that, there is the Storm Herald Barbarian, which when you rage, you sort of get the power of storm, earth, and fire to sort of help you out. And there are three modes you can sort of go between: desert, sea, and tundra, which is fire, lightning, and ice respectively.
Oh, so it's not all just it's not all just you're on a ship sort of storm. It's like more of like, is it sort of like how the way of the four elements is with the monk, but you get to be stronger and not a weak little monk and be able to kill things with a big axe?
A little bit, yeah. Like you get it basically at first it just sort of gives you like protection from these things, like resistances, and then protection, and then eventually it does deal damage to your enemies, either when you hit them or when they're just sort of around you when your rage is activated. And what Zealot is, it's kind of like a weird combination of like a cleric or a paladin mixed with barbarian, and basically their whole thing is, they're really, fervently worshipping like some sort of god, usually like a war god, and what it basically does, it makes them super hard to kill, and if they do die, it's super easy to bring them back. Like one of their features is that once they hit a certain level, I think level 14, when you bring them back from the dead, it doesn't cost any, material components to bring them back.
Oh no, I checked that. That's actually the third level ability, so I start with that right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite abilities. If I'm just gonna chime in for a second, it's one of my favorite abilities of the Zealot Barbarian. Is that adds a lot of cool quest stuff to it. Like say your group isn't strong enough to take out, Strahd or some red dragon that's dominating the land. So your quest is to go out and go find these 2 or 3 barbarians of ancient times, and go res them up, and they can lay ass on things.
Or they're like the protector, like the fighter, guardians of Ares, and when the need is great, they're sort of brought back from the dead, sort of in case of emergency, break glass, get barbarian.
Or even just that, like say your old adventuring crew just wants to go wake up Ted again. It's like, oh, who would love to be here killing all these goblins? Friggin' Ted. So you guys go out to his sarcophagus and say, wake up you, and he goes out full of bloodlust, full of righteous indignation, or war god, unholy indignation, to go out, cause another warpath. So it can also lean sort of, hey, I like this character from my old campaign. A lot of other people like Ted. Go pick up Ted.
Maybe something if you're playing in the same, universe, in a different campaign, but time has passed, you can sort of bring that character back that sort of way. It's up to you. The next class just going down the list is the Bard, and the first new college they get is the Glamour College, and what that college is about is basically just stuff like, they're going to be able to enchant people easier without, having the whole, wait a minute, you just try to bamboozle me sort of effect that comes along with a lot of, mental manipulation spells. They get other things where basically it's easier for them to sort of enthrall someone with a performance or to spook someone with a performance. So they're not charmed, but they don't have to cast spell charm, but you do sort of get that effect to an extent.
When do they get that charm ability? Because that sounds better than even being a wizard who is not your, what is it, the not an illusion, but the enchantment wizard.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit better than them, where they get theirs at, I want to say, super high level. Does Bard get that early?
I think the Glamour Bard, I think they get that pretty early on.
Oh, so that's good, because that's always been a way to like make everybody in the town hate you. Like, Friend spell doesn't have that aspect, but I know the Charm Person does, which that's like a first level enchantment spell. But you like, say you do charm your way past like the town guard, or charm the nobleman into, say, giving you 500 gold or what have you extra for quest.
You have like
60
seconds to sort of have that happen, then get out of there before they realize.
You robbed me, didn't you?
Yeah, so it is a cool another way. The next college you can go into is the College of Swords. Basically, it's more of sort of a battle bard. Like, I know there was the College of Valor for the original Player's Handbook. It's a little bit different because it does focus more. It's more of a fighter with bard-like abilities. Like instead of 5th level, at 6th level they get their extra attack. They get different weapon bonuses and proficiencies. Basically, how they're going to perform differently instead of maybe playing a lute or a sweet, I don't know, bongo solo or the tuba. They're going to entertain people. They're going to maybe do like a really cool swordsmanship demonstration. Like maybe they'll have like a mock fight with someone that'll look really cool and choreographed and spectacular.
So you're saying you don't get to play the bongo anymore? Can I still make my Ricky Ricardo?
I mean, if you really want.
All right, good.
That's the point of D&D. You can do whatever.
Don't you ever take Ricky Ricardo away from me?
Yeah, I want to make you stop living that Vida Loca.
All right, good.
And the last bard is the College of Whispers, and their whole thing is they're kind of like a spy where, if you read Game of Thrones, how they're always like, be wary of mummers because they're gonna, charm their way in and, kill you in your sleep or, use it to find your secrets or something. So they have a lot sort of more infiltrate-y abilities.
So you don't have to pick rogue to be an assassin. This gives you another way of doing that.
Yeah, because maybe, like we're an assassin, you're gonna have to like sneak into his, scale the walls up his, the window through his, stab in his sleep. With that, maybe it's something where, maybe you're doing something so he has troubled sleep and then you come along and, I can soothe your troubled mind or something. Or maybe he just wants like a private concert in his room because entertainment options are either that or throw a rock in your fireplace and sort of watch that happen. So a lot of these sort of, if you're doing that kind of thing, a lot of these sort of get to places where it'd be hard to get because you're like, I'm VIP, the guy wants me to go do this kind of thing, or,
You don't have to be the infiltrator class of rogue anymore if you do want to be the sort of the more James Bond type. Yeah, you can just show up as yourself. Probably not as yourself because then, when they do find a dead body, town guard's probably going to go after them.
Yeah.
But you can just say you're another bard and have him take his fall for you.
Yeah. And so that wraps up for the bard. So the next class is going out as cleric, and the new sort of paths or whatever they have are the forge cleric. And what they are for if you have a cleric who's devoted to like a forge god like Hephaestus or I don't know, some other custom god you've made.
Who was the one that made there was a dwarf that made Odin's Mjolnir, right? Out of the star.
Yeah, I don't know his name, but he's a dwarf, so it's probably something like Stonebeard or something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Probably just
But you can be just a pilgrim to him.
Yeah, or something like that. And what they bring to the table is they can do stuff like they can improve weapons. Obviously, they get proficiency in smithing and stuff like that, so they can actually make a sword. It'll take a while, but if you want to, you can have a cool thing where it's like, I've made this. I've made sort of my own custom sword, and it's maybe it still only do the same damage as a regular sword, but it's special. You can have it look kind of cool, and then later on with your abilities, you can improve things. And also, I think later on you get sort of like resistance to fire and
stuff like that. You're at a forge all day, basically. That's your whole life. It'd be weird if you were just like, it's so hot in this room.
Yeah, you can take the heat in the kitchen.
That's kind of nice.
The next sort of cleric is the grave cleric.
Another necromancer?
Actually, it's kind of like an anti-necromancer.
Whack! But go on, I want to hear more about it.
So what they're for is they sort of worship, gods of death, and how they see it is that death is like a holy and a natural thing that's going to happen, and it's something to be celebrated, not feared, because it is inevitable. Like, even, a mighty lich who, foresells death for centuries or millennia, eventually he's going to fall. Team Adventures finally, he has to kill the Adventurers every time. The Adventurers might have to kill him one time, or it's going to be, eventually, maybe he's going to fall down the stairs and break his, phylactery or something.
I mean, it's pretty shit lich if he has his phylactery on him where he can break it. Also, I'm not sure how I feel about having a cleric, at least in my party, where he's like, death is fine. It's okay to die.
Yeah.
I want my cleric to make sure I don't die.
What they do is they'll do stuff like they will they'll help you from dying. They'll spare the dying, all that stuff. They also have cool abilities where they're kind of better at killing people. So they'll use necromancy, but not for like bringing people back from the dead. But they do have an ability where they can sort of give disability, not disadvantage, but like disabilities to someone, because it's like, ooh, I'm using my power sort of seeing to the grave, and I see that you're going to go into a grave soon because you met me today.
That'd be terrifying.
Kind of stuff like that. They do eventually get stuff like Revivify, which is kind of like a gray area, because it's sort of like when you use CPR to bring someone back. It's not bringing someone back from the dead, but it's not. And eventually they do get resurrection, because as someone who worships, the domain of death, you should know how to, it's like, okay, I really hate doing this, but, this person needs to be brought back for something.
You're gonna know how the magic works. If your grave domain clerics use it, that's up to them thematically, but it does make sense for them to at least know that sort of thing.
But also they do despise the undead. They do despise necromancy, because they're sort of seeing as they're like twisting something that's natural and holy and goodly. All right, so moving on to the next class, we have the Druid, and they have a couple of new circles. So there's the Circle of Dreams, which is sort of a Druid that, sort of dabbles more in the nature of the Feywild. So they have different things like they can sort of just heal people with sort of Fey energy. They sort of, they're more druids of not the normal forest, but of the Feywild, and just kind of something that's their domain. It's kind of a cool new flavor text.
I like it. I'm glad the Feywild got a druid, because when you think of wild wilderness druid, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't really mess with the Fey too much, and this will probably be a good reason to get into it.
Yeah. And then the next person is the Circle of the Shepherd. Their thing is they sort of, where most druids, they sort of protect like the forest itself, like the trees and the rocks and the streams and all that's like the land itself. What the Circle of the Shepherd is, they sort of protect the animals in the forest. So
it's like the other side of the coin to your wilderness druid, protecting the trees and the trants and the woodwoods and whatnot. This one will protect your woodland creatures, your foxes, owlbears, your bears.
Yeah, and they'll also, protect like little fairies, just sort of like pixies or whatever. Basically, they're sort of like the superheroes of the forest. So if there's like, you need like nasty poachers coming along, like, ooh boy, there's some little baby wolf puppies. We're going to make those into some soft gloves. They'll be like, stop right there, villain. In fact, you're being made into soft gloves.
Is that a conflict of interest if the person making the really soft wolf pelts was born of the forest?
I mean, that's... I ain't no cop. But also, they do also, besides that, they do sort of have sort of shamanistic abilities where they sort of call on, the spirits of certain animals, like the spirit of the wolf, the spirit of the bear, and eventually like the spirit of the unicorn to do different abilities. So they also are kind of like a cool shaman archetype, which I haven't really seen in a while, and I think it's kind of cool that they finally put it back in.
Yeah, like I've seen druids as sort of shamanistic anyway, so it's good that they have a thing that's like, no, shaman, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
The next class that we have is the fighter, and the first sort of, new subclass they have is the arcane archer, and they are, the easiest way to think of them is that they are the ranged version of the eldritch knight, where usually your eldritch knight is using some sort of melee weapon, It's kind of like, ooh, I'm really good at, a sword or an axe or a hammer or spear or whatever, but I'm also got some magic in my back pocket. They're sort of the same way, except for, they sort of do a lot of their magic with their arrows and their bows and stuff like that, and also they can sort of do some different kind of like trick shot kind of things.
That's pretty cool. Like, I play as an Eldritch Knight, and anytime I do play as an Eldritch Knight, or really any kind of fighter's character, whether it be fighter or barbarian or paladin, what have you, I always go melee weapon. I don't know why. I've been really hard pressed to see somebody who does, like with starting equipment, who does go with the leather armor and longbow.
Yeah.
It's super effective, but again, I've never seen it, and it's good that they do have a class that's set for that.
Yeah. So the next sort of subset of fighter is the samurai, and one thing to add is it's not like how it was in previous editions where no matter what sort of race or background you have, you're sort of a weeb. Like in 3.5, they sort of had, I think it was like the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide for 3.5 or something like that, or...
Oh, yeah.
But it was something where it had a picture of a dwarf in like full-on samurai gear, and he had like a katana where, you know, and all that stuff where only samurais can use that. What the samurai is here is basically, it is sort of just like a disciplined and honor-focused warrior, which it's, they have some cool abilities, like they can do stuff where they can get advantage on certain things. They're just, I don't know, just where the regular sort of fighter, they could just sort of be like a mercenary or whatever. They sort of more are your honor-bound, you know,
Like, they can be your
they have
knight.
a code, yeah.
They can be your knight. They can be your, you know, your samurai, things like that. I like I sort of like them adding more like things of, like the East.
Yeah.
In here, just because it does add more to, it adds more flavor in the human race being very diverse. I'm not one to always cry for diversity. It's nice to see once in a while.
Yeah, it's nice to not just have like a solid model culture. Like, I love Tolkien fantasy as much as the next nerd, but it's nice to sort of poke your head out and see what else is out there.
I was kind of disappointed when the Easterlings weren't like something else. Like, I'm not saying, you know, make them black or make them like Asian, but like, you know, some sort of like Middle Eastern would have been cool. Like, just something else would have been nice to sort of lean more to.
Yeah, that would be a cool thing to start seeing in like fantasy games, is more like Middle Eastern inspired classes or.
Yeah. I'm not going to try to get all SJW about it. I'm just saying it would be a nice change of pace.
Yeah, it would be kind of cool. Yeah.
Let's move on with that, though.
And the last sort of subset of fighter is the Cavalier, which basically it's what's on the tin there. They're focused on mounted combat, which is kind of nice because before that, mounted combat was very bare bones. It's basically like, all right, if you want to ride a horse, something you should probably handle animal. Also, here's the page where it tells you how much a horse costs.
And now there's like, I would think there was like a mounted combat feat.
Yeah.
And there was like not the lance, but like the weapon lance that you can get. But it wasn't really too fleshed out like how like a lot of British classes were or anything like that. This one does put a thing on it. Only problem I really see with the Cavalier class is how you get that big horse in like the little dungeon dungeons.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've always kind of strayed from sort of the Cavalier classes, because it's like, yeah, you know, you got all these sweet ass bonuses to when you are on a horse, but you know, if you got to scale a wall, unless you have like, you know, your barbarian, you know, Mungo from like Blazing Saddles, where he's able to just like, you know, like lash your horse with a piece of rope, and he's able to just and just sort of pull a horse up a wall.
Ooh. Now, with Cavalier, that's something. With Cavalier, does it have to be like a horse, or can it be like a wyvern or like a guard drake or something cooler than like a donkey?
From what I've read, it doesn't just have to be a horse. There might be certain things. It's probably something you want to talk about with your dungeon master.
Because a lot of times, like when you are fighting like a big flying foe, and you just say, "Oh, take this guy home with me," you know. It would be really cool for them to like, that would be their big thing, was where, you know, you plebs can walk or even take your horses, but Mama's got a wyvern, or, you know, something more, or a giant centipede, or a beholder that I've enslaved.
Yeah, the beholder, I think definitely. I think it's one of those things where if you somehow beat a beholder bad enough that you're like, now you're gonna be my fucking horse. I'm gonna ride on you because walking's for losers. If you beat a beholder up that bad, you probably got sweet enough stats to just sort of make it happen.
Yeah. Actually, next character I make it time I want to be this guy, jest and go out and find a beholder.
Yeah.
His ass, have like all the eye rays, Also, that'd be terrifying riding into really any battle. Like, even if you are fighting a lich, say, okay, so you're fighting a lich, right? You're fighting, or an angel if you don't always want to do the campaign. You see your typical, like, 3 adventurers, like, oh, they're even a man short, you know, I can take these guys. And then your 4th guy, big, honking, heavy armored knight, goes in riding a beholder into battle, shooting off eye rays. Beholder's screaming, oh god, just run, don't let him do to you what he did to me. That would scare off almost any threat that's smart enough to feel fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that finished up for the fighter. The next class we have is the monk. The first sort of subset is the drunken master. Basically, it's kind of like the Jackie Chan movie where, you know, it's a lot of, you know, they get a lot of their stuff where they have sort of surprising movements, but because they are drinking, they're sort of swaying around, they're twitching, they're jittery, they're, I don't know, maybe vomiting or something. So for one, you're probably going to discount a guy a lot less who, you know, he sort of staggers, who he just sort of staggers out at you and sort of just says, hey, you want to... So like, all right, let's do this. You're probably going to, you know, most foes are probably going to let their guard down a little bit and, you know, sort of, you know, maybe start the fight off not seriously and just sort of messing around with them. Like, they might not even, like, draw their weapons out. Just like, all right, I'm just going to shield bash this, you know, this drunk. And then, but then, bam.
What did you mean when you said this drunk?
I mean to.
All right.
But yeah, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like improvised jazz, where it's random and stuff, but also there's enough skill and discipline to make it work. The next monk subset is the Kensai, which is basically a monk, but they're really good at using swords. Like, they can do stuff where, like how monks at, like, was it 5th level, where they can sort of, their punches are magic for if you're going to punch a ghost, it'll hurt a ghost. You can sort of do that where you can sort of pour energy into your sword and make it happen. You're really good at, you know, melee weapon and ranged weapons.
It's like Kenshi from Mortal Kombat, or if you remember Jade Empire, they were monks. I know Jade Empire. But for the people who did play Jade Empire, they're basically like a monastery of monks. I don't want to give away spoilers for what I'm thinking is a 15-year-old BioWare game. It's great, you should buy it. But they also have like different weapon styles that you can do and certain things that they can flood into that. And so you can relive a little bit of that. It's a monk without just, oh, I got these 2 dukes.
Yeah. My only kind of gripe with him is that, you know, if you have like a +1 sword or a magic sword, you can't really put any of your chi to give it, you know, your bonuses to it, but I can see for balancing reasons why, like, if you got a +1 sword or, you know, +2 sword, then you're going to pump your key points into it, and all of a sudden you have like a just insane sword, which I can kind of see why I wouldn't be too thrilled about it, but what it is how it be.
If your DM's cool, he's probably going to let you do something like that, though. There's a lot of, like, with all things in Xanathar's Guide, there is wiggle room for a lot of things. It's new enough that you might want to follow the book, but that's something to work out with your DM.
Yeah, it's one of those things where rule number 1 of Dungeons & Dragons is whatever the DM says goes.
I thought it was don't be a dick.
I mean, that's just sort of like a social... I mean, we're going to be here all night if we start, you know, going off track, talking about, like, the social contract.
I want to talk about them.
Next video. Yeah, and then the last monk is the Way of the Sun. And basically, these are, like, ranged monks, or basically, they're kind of like, I want to say Goku, because you're never going to get strong enough to do that. I don't know, I'd say, like, Krillin, like early Krillin kind of stuff, where you're sort of pa, sha, sha, and you're, you know, basically, instead of, you know, punching with your fist, you can sort of punch with, like, just radiant energy or something like that, and you can do an attack where you sort of charge things up and you sort of throw thing and everything within a 20-foot range of where you decide to throw it.
So if you are playing as a Dragon Ball Z-like character, the fight still lasts like maybe like 3 episodes, and then there's another 2 seasons of filler, and then there's like 1 fight.
Actually, that was only a TV show to run out of space until the manga could catch up.
Just a little better. But go on, tell me more about this monk.
Yeah, it's basically, you know, the sort of energy monks, where instead of punching with your fist, they punch you with their soul, I guess.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, pretty spoopy. So the next class we have is the Paladin. They have 2 new oaths. These 2 oaths are really fire and ice, day and night difference. The first oath is the Oath of Conquest, where basically, if they had a motto, it would be make war and move on, make war and move on. For all else is just sophistry and pretty lies. Basically, they wake up in the morning, they splash cold water on their face, they open their tent and say, Well, I haven't beaten up and subjugated those people over there. I guess I should. And a lot of times they do sort of fall in league with devils because they sort of are lawful in the sense of like, ooh, well, there's all these different, banners. They shall be under my banner. Then there won't be any more fighting about who's going to be in charge. It'll just be me because I'm biggest and the strongest of the dads. So that sort of falls in line with some, like, sort of, if you know the difference between demon and devil sort of falls along with sort of how the devils operate.
Oh, because they're more lawful.
Yeah, they're the lawful ones where, the devil's the one's like, hey, if you really want that Snickers bar, I'll do it, but for a price.
Or I've got this fiddle of soul against your goal because I think I'm better than you.
Yeah, something like that. Where the demon just sort of just like, oh, and they're just going to rip out your spine and, beat you with your spine kind of thing.
Demon.
Yeah. And then the next monk is the Oath of Redemption, where basically they're sort of a callback to like, really early like first edition kind of paladins where they're sort of like ultra goodly where it's almost a little bit too much where because basically what these paladins do is they go around and before you're going to fight your bandits, how you might have your other sort of paladin, you're sort of a good character is like, hey, there's no need for violence. Lay down your arms. We'll just take you to jail. This, and obviously, any bandit's going to be like, no, I'm not going to jail again, or no, it sounds like a terrible idea.
I was reading a little bit about the Oath of Redemption Paladin. I kind of like him more. It's what I feel like a lot of like a lot of what they have is sort of moving away from what a paladin should be, which is a force for righteous good. It seems like a lot of paladins are moving to that sort of, ooh, I'm Batman, sort of gray area where I'm the Oath of Vengeance Paladin, where I have a little bit of evil in my heart, or like the Oathbreaker, where that allows you to be evil. Absolutely the Oath of Conquest. There's too many evil paladins.
Yeah, which is really because it used to be like there was one paladin. It's like if you broke your paladin oath, you basically go back to like you lose all of your paladin. Not just like you can't use your paladin. It's like no, you lose all of your stuff. You're basically like a level 1
fighter, or even not even that, like just a guy. Like I sort of miss that because that I'm not a fan of people just playing their character just to say, oh, that's what my character would do because that leads to dickishness. But I feel like a lot of times, like people like I feel like a lot of times there is sort of a like there's no real playing to your character at all. Like you just sure I'm a paladin, I got all these goodly powers from my god, but skin that guy over there to teach everybody else a lesson or something like that.
Yeah, and so this is your more traditional, like, super good paladin where instead of just saying, hey, surrender now and we'll just take you to jail, they'll be like, hey, listen, I know times are rough, you probably had some bad times growing up, but listen, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna talk to the sheriff and I'm gonna see if maybe we can do something where you guys keep the road safe. With good behavior. After a while, you can sort of work off your sentence. And then, I don't know, maybe you can just become a town guard, or, I don't know, you can go back to community college and, become a welder or whatever.
I like that it's wanting to make good in people.
Yeah, but still, it's one of those things where they also realize that I'm probably going to end up having to kill these bandits, but I gotta try.
They'll still smite the shit out of you. They're not weaklings.
Yeah.
They'll try more than your Oath of Vengeance will try.
Yeah. And after that, what we have is the Ranger, and one of their new subsets is the Gloomstalker, and their whole thing is they're sort of like a Ranger of the Underdark, where or just the dark, scary place, and they sort of get different shadow abilities. Like they get dark vision, and if you're already a race that has dark vision, your dark vision gets better. You also get stuff where you can't be seen by dark vision, so unless they could, they could see you without dark vision, they can't see you. You get certain kind of shadow abilities, so that's kind of cool. I know there's different mods like the Curse of Strahd and stuff where there's a lot more kind of like Shadow Felly or Shadow things where...
Yeah, and like if you do want to like venture into the Underdark because a drow stole like your wife or what have you.
Or maybe you are a drow, and if you want to play Ranger, it'd be really weird if you had all this woodland knowledge, because... Yeah, I get it, you could leave the Underdark and go sort of up top, but that's like a whole new world you have to learn, and it'd be kind of weird if all of a sudden you became like an expert in that.
So if you want to be a Drow Ranger without being, the Drow Ranger with 2 Scimitars and a big panther?
The next Ranger is the Horizon Walker, and their whole thing is they range in the outer planes, so certain things like, your regular Ranger, if you go to the plane of fire, their little trick where they sort of just stab the ground and sort of listen, sort of figure out where they are, that ain't going to work for them. They'll just be like, well, everything's on fire and there's lava everywhere, so... Or, Horizon Walker is going to be able to figure out where they are. If you're on, the elemental plane of air, they're going to sort of figure out, okay, this is one of the floating islands. If we wait long enough, maybe an Aarakocra is going to stop by and we can ask for directions then or something, or just, kind of stuff like that. Also, they guard, they usually guard portals around. They sort of guard, sort of hang out around sort of portals. So if like a hapless merchant or whatever is gonna like go through and like, ooh, this is just a simple stone arch, where you're like, hey, don't do that, leads to Feywild, or hey, don't do that, it's gonna lead to just, I don't know, the outer realms where basically Beholder's gonna eat you.
One thing I do like about Xanathar's Guide, they are adding a lot of outer planes, or like some stuff that's not just the regular prime material plane into things. Like they're having like a lot more Underdark stuff. They're having a lot more like elemental planes of what have you stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's like uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Like Feywild, Shadowfell.
Yeah, which I like. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the last kind of ranger is going to be the Monster Slayer. They're going to be, your supernatural hunters. They can do stuff like they can, a few times a day or whatever, they can sort of magically just sort of see something, sort of watch it for a minute and sort of know, okay, this is what's going to hurt it. These are its weaknesses. These are what it's strong against. This is how I make it hurt. They're going to be, kind of think of it like your Van Helsing. They know how to make the things that go bump in the night hurt.
Oh, cool. So, like, say, for example, if you do have one of these in your party, Dungeon Masters, or just even players who are running into this guy, or gal, this can be like the person who does, this can be your quest's patron, who, there's an aberration out in the forest, so there's something that they've known to be like a hag out in the forest. They can tell you its different strengths and weaknesses. He can pay you a part of his commission to go out there and hunt the thing down. Mm-hmm. This can be a good quest giver if you did want to think of an idea for one, or say if you did have this guy in your party, this could be like when you do make the inevitable stop in town, there could be, a farmer who does reach out to you specifically and say, hey, the town has this collection together, can you please help us with this trouble? And it will be less, it will be easier for this person to be able to make the investigations and whatnot to figure out what it is and go hunt it down.
Yeah. And that wraps up for Ranger. The next class we have is the Rogue. So there is the Mastermind, which is, sort of like your Spy Master. They have all this stuff where they're not psychic, but they can sort of defend against things like, eventually once they get like really high levels, they can do stuff like they can lie in a zone of truth, or they can, I think it's like level 17, they can sort of walk into a zone of truth and be like, I didn't kill the Baron, and most people who, is your divination wizard cleric is gonna be like, zone of truth, did you kill him? It's like, no, I wouldn't do such a thing.
And your knowledge cleric's not gonna know what's going on.
Yeah, they're gonna just be like, well, shit, you mean you can't lie.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's farther, but they can also do stuff like they can have their thoughts read, or one level it's something where they can have their thoughts read, or if they can, when they're someone's trying to read their thoughts, they can try to make fake thoughts. So if they're thinking, oh boy, I'm gonna stab this person, and someone's trying to read their mind, they can think, I really want chili for dinner. So mind readers are gonna, kind of stuff like that, where they're really good at lying and getting away with stuff. And, think of like Varys from Game of Thrones. Words are as much of their weapons as poison or a knife.
So at super high levels, this is going to be the dick in the party who does steal one of the other players' items, and then they're going to be able to lie and say it wasn't me, even if they're in its own truth.
Yeah.
Hate this guy.
Yeah. Might be difficult. Then the next there is the Scout. So what they are, it sounds kind of like they are in the tin. They're a rogue, but they're not so much sneaky like, like city stuff. They do a lot more like, kind of scouting things, obviously. So it's like they're going to be the ones who, if they're in the army or something, they're the ones who are going to be sneaking through the forest or through enemy territory, trying to find, place to set up ambush. They actually are really good at like ambushing people. So.
Oh, cool. So they're going to be more of your. They're going to be like, well, your scout of the group to figure out how many orcs are there.
So, but yeah, basically think of them as a rogue who plays outside. The next person is, the Inquisitive, which I kind of like. I think it's been a long time coming, but they are sort of like a detective. They're sort of like the foil to the mastermind. It might be kind of funny if you have a high-level mastermind and a high-level
detective.
Inquisitive. Yeah, it's going to literally be like a Sherlock Holmes Moriarty thing because they're really good at telling. Inquisitives are really good at like. Finding out the truth about stuff. They're really good at investigating things. So basically, it's kind of like how, between, taking pulls on, Chase the White Dragon, Sherlock Holmes, he was learning how to pick locks. He was learning how to be sneaky. He was learning how to disguise himself just because he knows what to look for when, you are trying to disguise yourself, when you are trying to do all this. So it is kind of a cool thing. I really liked when I read about this, how it was just a super cool thing that they've thrown in. And I think it's been a long time coming that, is the anti-thief. It is the detective.
Yeah, so it's the rogue that doesn't always have to have that tinge of evil to them.
Yeah, or, maybe it's something where they are part of, like, the city guard, but they're
higher. They're like the CIA.
Yeah. Well, they're sort of, like, instead of like a beat cop, they're sort of the detective or, the one where it's like, oh man, I can't find this crime, Colin Clouseau, and he's like, ho ho ho, I've picked this lock and I found this, blah blah blah. The last rogue in the Xanathar's Guide is the swashbuckler. So again, what it sounds like on the tin,
pirate.
Yeah, but not so much, Johnny Depp where there's like a drunken, I mean they can be, but not so much like a drunken madman, but sort of like Errol Flynn where, yeah, if they're going to raid another boarding ship, they're going to, gracefully and, garishly swing on a rope and go and fight. And, before they fight, they're going to say, ha-ha! And then,
Shot.
And then, they're going to be sword fighting, and they're going to be, one of the things is, like, they can actually sort of, like, throw an insult out. So if like, a target attacks someone else, they get disadvantage.
Oh, so they're going to be able to, like, yo mama joke so hard that, like, they're going to...
Yeah, so it's something where, like, if you have a really big, strong guy trying to, I don't know, let's say hurt the wizard, because no one ever does anything in a campaign where everyone sort of splits up and then the wizard gets their ass beat because everyone else has arms and armor and the wizard is wearing a shirt.
Hey, come on, he's wearing a shirt.
Yeah, so they can do stuff like they can, sort of, taunt people, sort of like a Monkey Island where they can sort of, taunt people while they're fighting and, just sort of, a good time had by all.
Seems kind of Barty.
Yeah, it's I'd say more body than Barty, but yeah, they seem like kind of like a really fun character to play. They're sort of, they're charismatic. They're about what they do. They're about dueling and just having fun, I guess.
Cool.
And so going down the line for the sorcerer, we have the divine soul. So basically, because before that, the only other smart choice was, Dragon Soul, because fuck, Wild Mage, that's the worst decision ever, because it's either...
Come on, you don't want to have to wipe your whole group with, like, just a random fireball if you roll wrong on that table?
Yeah, it's sort of like saying, hey, would you like to have a chance to magically blow up your party at literally the worst possible time?
Or turn to a pot plant?
Yeah, or turn to a pot plant, or grow dragon wings at, a higher level. You're going to pick the... Dragon wings all damn day. So for things like the divine soul, it's sort of like, someone in your family was touched by an angel, more literally than figuratively, or something like that. So that's sort of where you get your wumbo, and you're going to have more sort of angelic kind of healy supporty abilities. The next sorcerer is the storm sorcerer, and what they do is they're very connected to storms. So maybe they're, conceived during a storm, or maybe, I don't know, they're hit by magic lightnings kind of stuff.
Does everything have a storm aspect to it now? Because you have the storm barbarian, you have the storm sorcerer. Those are the new things. You have a tempest cleric. What else does not storm from X-Men? What else doesn't have storm to it now?
Well, you know what they say, when it rains it pours. Yeah, and so they just have different like storm-like abilities, like they can kind of do stuff with the weather and things like that. Seems pretty cool. And then the last sorcerer on there, it's kind of like you're sort of you got sort of evil like Shadowfell, not evil, but sort of like dark shadow magic in you. Like they got stuff going on from the Shadowfell. I don't know, maybe you have your parent, one of your parents was from the Shadowfell and they left there because it's horrible there, and I don't want to leave desperately or something like that, or for some reason you have an innate connection with the Shadowfell. Going on from that, there is Warlock, and they have 2 new sort of patrons or things like that. Keeping up with the the shadow stuff. Your patron can be sort of an entity of the Shadowfell, perhaps like the Raven Queen or something like that. Yeah, you sort of get like dark abilities, like you sort of get like a dark, like a sort of like a dark energy sword thing going on.
Oh, like it's Hexblade, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a Hexblade kind of thing.
I like it.
And then the next Warlock patron is one which I think has been a long time coming, because it seems like before, if you're going to be a Warlock, you're throwing your lot with some sort of shade of evil. From before it was kind of not so much evil, but just like cosmic prankster with the, if you're going to throw in a lot with the Fae, because it's something where, yeah, they're not going to, maraud and, eat your soul or something, but they're going to be like, oh man, this is going to be the best prank ever. We put this sleeping draught in your drink where it's going to make you fall asleep for 200 years, so when you wake up, all of your family and friends will have died or be super old unless you knew a bunch of elves, and they're going to be like, oh man, you missed a whole bunch of elf stuff going on. It's going to be hilarious.
I mean, come on, there's what is it, the great old one with Cthulhu and Nyarlathotep.
I'm going to let you get one more, try. Nyarlathotep? Yeah, and so...
It's hard.
And then, there's sort of like, cosmic, ununderstandable evil with, like the great old ones, if you want to throw your light in with that.
Or like, they'll get to you, like, eventually, or they won't.
Yeah, but a lot of their stuff is, it's like, yeah, we're going to eat everything, but, I don't know, I'm kind of bored or something. It's sort of something where it's evil, but you can't even comprehend how it's evil or why it's evil. And then you've got stuff like your demons or devils where you're selling your soul to the devil or a demon.
Or again, the demon comes down, rips your spine out like the Predator, and beats you to death with it.
Yeah, so it is finally nice that you can, make a deal with an angel. So it's not just, you're serving some sort of unspeakable horror or something like that. You sort of do get more sort of angelic.
So your Warlock doesn't have to be an edgelord?
Yeah.
Yes.
And last but not least, for the classes, there is the Wizard. And they only get 1 new feature, but that's fine with me because they got like a jillion different features in the Originals Player Handbook.
They're like 7 or something in them.
So 8's enough. Like, I know you didn't get a lot of new stuff, but you already had a lot before. Don't get greedy, Wizards. But it's sort of like a Warcaster, and basically what it does is sort of like a mix between an Evocation and an Abjuration Wizard, where they get some boosts to their Evocation magic and some boosts to their Abjuration magic, but they're not as great. But it is a cool kind of mix because, like it says in the book or something, where an Evocation Wizard says, hey, why not, just go full Evocation, just so you can throw this mighty fireball, and their response is usually something like, well, what use is it to be able to cast a mighty fireball if you're dead before you can throw it?
Also, this is a good... This one does shore up that obvious thing that's going to happen where the group does split away from the Wizard.
Yeah. So what they can do is they can do some cool stuff, like whenever they dispel magic or they counterspell magic, they can sort of store up sort of the energy that they took away from that spell, and they can use to boost their own spells later before they take a long or a short rest.
Cool.
Yeah, it does seem pretty cool. Next time I make a wizard, I might roll up a Warcaster.
And then everybody will scatter from you for the first opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll die and have to make a new character.
Yeah.
But one thing I did like about the characters in general is they did give new different things to sort of help you add cool intro and background stuff to your character. Like, for example, going back to the Barbarian, they're backwards people, so they're gonna have backwards beliefs. Like, if you
Ow.
disturb the bones of the dead, you're gonna, so basically, if you're going to an old tomb and you're gonna say, hey, that skeleton has a real cool sword. If you disturb his bones, you're gonna take on the problems that he had in life. Or dwarves are, semi-undead because they live underground already, or wizards or whatever, or devils because, they cast magic.
Well, they are, but do you think that the ancestral guardian barbarian type that they give you, and all the weird superstitions that they have against like the undead, do you think that's gonna clash, or do you think it's gonna be like, oh God, my parents, they could even in death they hound me?
I don't know. I think maybe it's something where it's sort of like, no, this is my ancestors willingly giving me a helping hand instead of those spooky ghosts over there where you're like, whoa, oh. It's like, yeah, my ancestors don't do that. They just help me, they just help me fuck people up, like they should be doing. But and also it's kind of like more ancestor worship, but just different things. Like for the cleric, there's like a little table you can roll for different things, like, you're a cleric to like a goodly god, but also there's an imp that only you can see that sometimes whispers things in your ears. Sometimes it's to tempt you, sometimes it's to give you advice. But the thing that kind of sucks is that it's never, sometimes it's good advice that it's giving out, or different sort of flaws. You have like, yeah, even though I'm a cleric, I've felt like the gods are just just ultra powerful mega beings that maybe we're not divine, but it's one of those things where they have a really good retirement plan sort of thing going on.
There's another one where you do like the finger bones of a saint.
Or just
you are going to play as the evil cleric.
Well, I mean, no, I think that's just something sort of like, there are different things you can sort of give or have just to help you add flavor text. Like, you can start with
evil cleric. How do you get the finger bones of a saint?
Well, I mean, a lot of religions they sort of say saint bones.
He's got a saint right there.
Well, no, it's like after they died, they'd use it for that. Listen,
I'm saying you have this. You stole them from a saint. You're murder hobos. You know what you're doing. You go around hunting down saints.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I think it's supposed to be kind of different. Like how in ye old times, like after a saint would die, they use his bones to like inspire the faithful. But again, that'll be a whole nother video if you ever decide to stop doing Dungeons and Dragons stuff and start going over medieval lore or whatever. But just there are certain cool little things, like for example with the wizard, you can do stuff like maybe your spell book isn't a book, maybe it's like around your staff you have all the stuff written on little leather strips that are wrapped around your staff, and that's your spell book. So instead of reading your spell book like, what spell shall I memorize today, it's sort of something where you're sort of looking at your staff and sort of doing something like that with it. There's little things like that.
Those little cards that like the Japanese sages would have, like little long
cards. Spirit strips or whatever.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things, like for the rogue, it's sort of something like, what's that one thing that you lust after? Is it gold? Is it gems? Is it basically you just have to steal just to keep your skills up? Is it you have to make a pretty person smile at you or something? It can be all these cool things. What I really like about Xanathar's Guide is it does give a whole lot of things to do to make your character that much more in depth, make it like more like a actual person. And it also has a bunch of tables that you can either roll for, or you can just sort of look through to get inspiration for stuff. Because it's got things you can roll for, like, hey, I got what was your family like? Because I think a lot of people, just because they don't want to have to think of a whole family history for their family, so they say, oh well, it doesn't matter because my parents are dead. Yes, everyone is dead and I was an only child, so I don't got to think about that. There are things you can do where you can roll like, okay, was your family well off? Were they this or were they that? And just sort of different things to make your character.
I mean, it worked for Batman and Superman being orphans. Why can't it work for your adventure?
Well, I mean, I don't think everyone's gonna be an orphan, or else.
Nope, they're all orphans.
Or else I think people would just sort of stop having babies, because it's like, dude, as soon as I plop this baby out, I'm gonna die.
Or you know damn well that when you and your wife die at the same time, the kid's gonna pick up the sword.
Yeah, and it just gives a lot of cool things to sort of make your character, just have that little bit more of an intriguing backstory. There's all sorts of cool things in there. I go on and on about it, but I'm sort of glossing over it because each of these things would be a whole video in and of itself.
Which you might do.
Yeah.
But just for the gloss over, is that about cover for you?
Yeah. So enough about me gabbing. We're going to turn over to Lance because he's going to talk more about the Dungeon Master aspect of it.
But that's going to be in video 2!
Hey, this is Evan from 20 Side Night. Thank you so much for watching our video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Have a great day.